What's up, everyone? Dave Bush here, your host of Kansas Sports HQ. We are on episode number 2. Good morning, everyone. Sheldon Howell, Sean Cutler.
Number 2.
Episode 2.
Hopefully runs a lot smoother than episode 1 technologically.
Man, that moth. Whoa, ninja.
We have a wild moth and
It landed on my leg and I slapped it.
attaboy.
So,
No.
So anyways, welcome to the show. And today we're going to talk about Sheldon Howell and how it all started. So let's get to know him and we'll see how things go. So good morning.
Morning.
And let's get this things going.
Yeah.
So Sheldon, first question for you. What brings you to want to do all of the things that you do? Like what was the driving force behind that?
Yeah. Well, to kind of start, it seems like a long time ago at this point in time. And it is a long time ago. We've been doing this for a while, which is kind of cool because most things don't make it as long as we have made it thus far. So I do think that that's something that we can kind of hang our hats on a little bit. I guess a little bit of history on me to kind of tell, let's paint the whole picture, tell the story, I guess. So I'm excited with sharing that. But it's I'm born and raised here in Wichita, obviously, so I've been around this community my entire life. I played sports here my entire life. Went to St. Jude, so shout out to all my St. Jude friends. It's kind of cool because I'm still basically best friends with all of those people I went to school with back when we were like in kindergarten. So even though Wichita's a big place, we kind of stayed together. A lot of us went to high school together as well, too. And so it's just, I have a lot of really good friends that I grew up with. But baseball was my passion, so obviously baseball ended up being my main sport, but I played a little bit of everything growing up. I tried football. My mom got me started in that way too late. She should have started me a little bit earlier, because I think I could have been a good football player too. But
Fullback?
Yeah, I could have done something.
Specialty.
Yeah, something. So I got started a little late in that. I just remember them giving me a helmet that was like 3 sizes too big, and every time I started running, I couldn't see, and I was like, yeah, this sport is just not for me. But I didn't have anybody to help me out in that sense. So I went to Bishop Carroll. So I played 3 years at Carroll. I ended up transferring to North my senior year, played over there with a lot of buddies that I grew up with. Had a blast, man. That was one of the best moves that I ever made. It kind of actually was I would say, kind of the first decision that I ever made that really kind of started to catapult me into a lot of different things that later came down the road in life, because it was a culture shock of a change, right? And I know you from around here, but obviously Sean from small town Iowa. But in the school system I was in to the school system I went to was just completely different. I'd never been in a public school my entire life. I wore a uniform since I was like 5 years old. So it was a culture shock, but it also, kind of made me put myself out there a little bit more, meet people, see, different types of culture and just different things. I mean, at North, we had the beginning of school was in English, and then they basically read everything right afterwards in Spanish, so like you sat down and I was like, what is going on?
Sure.
It was a thing. But North was amazing. I had a blast there, had a great coach there, had great teammates there, just friends, everything. And it was just a different way of life. Like Carroll, it was 8 hours a day. Like you're in a class to the next class to the next class, plus church, plus all of the different things that went into it. And North was like, I show up, basically my weights program was my first class, which was the baseball coach, and we, hung out.
Do I have to go to class?
That was pretty much it.
Coach got you different.
Yeah, we'd show up every once in a while, hang out. But, we had good grades and, but we'd go to lunch, and then sometimes we just wouldn't come back until practice, and that you couldn't get away with something like that at Carroll. But at North, as long as you were getting your stuff done, it really is what kind of made me a little bit more prepared for how college life was, to be honest. But yeah, no, I made that move. It was kind of like the first time that I was like, you know what, like I'm gonna put myself out there. I'm gonna bet on myself and, make a move to a school with nobody that I know other than the few guys that I played ball with, and it's a big school. It's a 6A school. So there's a lot of people there, and it just had a weird, I guess, at Carroll, and that's just like culture there, like had a weird reputation. Like my mom thought I was going to a gang-ridden school. She was like, "What the hell are you doing? Like, why would you do that?" And I was just like, "No, I think it sounds cool. It's kind of adventurous. Like, let's go and check it out." And it was nothing like that. Like, it was family oriented. It was awesome. Like everybody there was great. So we had a blast. We had a really good season. We ended up beating Carroll that year. We won city that year, all state. The whole nine. So that side of it was just like that little.
Yeah, time out. Because I know you said you wore a uniform the whole time. What was your style? What was
Oh
your
man,
style at
just
North?
pure athlete was it. Like, I think my mom did end up getting me like some new shoes for high school, which
Bandana as well.
no bandana, no. But it was weird. I remember vividly like walking into my first class and like being in just like gym clothes, and I was just like,
This
it was
is the
just
life.
it was a
This
weird,
is the
yeah, it was a
life.
weird feeling. Plus, it's like you don't have to get ready before school, really. Like you just roll out of bed, throw some shorts and a shirt on, and boom, you're there.
So
Like
4 days in a row, same shorts?
I don't remember, probably not. My mom was too particular for that, but yeah, no, it was like I said, it was a culture shock because it was different, but it was cool. It was fun. I had a lot of cool classmates there. I met a lot of lifelong friends there as well too that I still talk to. You guys know like Dre, who does a lot of our videos and stuff. I met him at North. One of my good friends, Roman. He had transferred to North a year before I went over there. And him and I kind of grew up on the same side of town and knew each other forever. So it was just
From the same block.
yeah, North Side, baby. But yeah, no, it was fun. And then it was, cherry on top is our baseball team was really good. Like we didn't have like a ton of depth or anything, but we just had we had a few guys that were solid, and it was just a really cool cultured team that, we were older and just, so that all worked out. But because of that success that I had there, I ended up finally got an offer from Newman. So, at Carroll, I didn't have any offers, and ended up with an offer from Newman. I went to Newman my freshman year, which was a grind just because it's a tough school in general. But they had just moved from NAIA to Division II the first year that I was there. I was the only freshman on the team, so that was a whole debacle as well too, because it was just like I was getting hazed by every person all the time, which was fun. Like it's kind of like get thrown into the deep end and just figuring it out. So
How do you end up as the only freshman on the team?
great question.
Now you're talking about baseball, but what position did you play, bud?
Middle infield. So at Newman, I was mainly a second baseman. Because I obviously I didn't start the season starting or anything. I probably started, I don't know, maybe a quarter of the way through the season, started playing a lot more, and then played pretty consistently through my freshman year towards the back end of the season. We had a good team. But that jump, obviously, moving from NAIA to Division II was a pretty big jump. We played in the Heartland Conference back then. So we were playing some super established teams, and they were good. Like, and they'd been around, and that recruiting level is just different. And back then it was different than it even is now. But gained a lot of experience there, had a lot of fun. Knew I could play at that level, which was nice because I put up good numbers and I was able to, kind of compete with the guys that were a lot older than me. And I was tiny back then, like small dude, still just trying. I mean, high school.
Smaller than when I first met you?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, tiny. Like what's weird, and part of, we'll get into Parisi eventually, but part of, the passion behind Parisi comes from that experience of, like I think the first time I even saw a weight room was right in like freshman or sophomore year in high school. You know what I mean? Like I didn't do any of that growing up. I had no idea about any of it. And
Different world.
yeah, it was way different. And, at North, like our weights was basically optional, like we just had to show up from time to time to make sure we weren't getting in trouble with anybody. But, we moving into my freshman year, that was like the first time that I ever really got thrown into like legitimate like style workouts and stuff, and like, running and lifting at 4:30 in the morning after you're the only freshman running around with all these dudes partying every night. Like it was a grind. It was a marathon.
But that sounds like your next school.
Huh?
That sounds like the stories from your next school.
Yeah, well, it kept going. So I transferred. Obviously, I was a Newman. Transferred from Newman. Ended up going to Butler. Shout out to Steve Johnson for kind of helping me out in that as well too. He's the coach who I ended up, really, I love that guy, and playing for him, he kind of gave me a lot of opportunities and helped me tremendously. But so I transferred to Butler after Newman, went there and had like the worst season of my life. Like that, like statistically, right? Great with the guys. off-field stuff was what it was, but the baseball portion of it, it was a grind. Like, I had the worst defensive year that I ended up having all through college. Hitting wise was pretty bad too. I don't think I even hit 300 that year. Like, it was like probably 50 or 260 or something. Like,
You're terrible.
it was a
man.
tough year. Like, it was
This guy sucks.
it was tough, but our team was really good, and I learned a lot in that aspect, and like playing with those guys. Like, and I still have really good friends with that. The guys that I live with, and some of the guys I ended up transferring when I ended up going to Hayes. I ended up living with those guys out there, and so we built really good relationships. And we were one game away that year from going to the JUCO World Series. We ended up losing in Wichita, and I never will forget that. We had a freshman hitting with the bases loaded, and he swung on the first pitch. But it is what it is. Just bad plate discipline as a young guy.
I mean, we've all been there though, right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I mean, that was just a tough spot to do that because we had all the momentum, and I had just gotten on base. I don't know.
And you were like freaky fast.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, I feel like later in life I ended up being faster, but I wouldn't say freaky fast. I was fast, and I was athletic, but I was raw and didn't really have any coaching in that aspect. I had a lot more determination and grit and just like willing to outwork everyone, and do the extra stuff and like just continually like work. But I didn't really have any clue what I was doing, like I was just willing to do it.
A little bit like Banks.
Huh?
A little bit like Banks.
Yeah, Banks. Yeah, his hopefully he ends up. Yeah, exactly.
Super speed.
Super speed. No, hopefully he ends up. I don't know, putting all of his rocks in order in his brain. Who knows what's gonna happen with that kid? Which, yeah. Anyway,
Wait. Back to
You're
your
good.
playing days. That I think your work ethic was instilled by mom. I mean,
Oh,
let's
man,
give her a shout out.
Yeah, my mom was great. She played at Creighton, played at WSU. She still holds some records, I believe, over at WSU. Me and my brother looked those
Strikeout
up.
leader.
Yeah, maybe like perfect games and strikeouts and
A little bit of this.
a little bit of this.
Mom's
a little bit of
all right,
that.
I guess.
Yeah. But
Built
no,
different.
she was legitimate, like really, really good high school player. And, times were just different back then, and things happen. Obviously, she stopped playing because she got pregnant with me. So that's her problem.
While driving a Corvette.
So, yeah, everybody's always like, yeah, way to go. Ruined her career. But yeah, no, it's, we've had good, family, as far as like, supporting that dream and that hustle of trying to keep doing things. And we still do, and as you guys know, my mom's involved with a lot of different things that we have going on. And, she helps out with different stuff, which we can talk about. But yeah, so that was Butler. I remember it because I played bad, but we still were good. And so I figured out a way to make it work. And then, I ended up transferring, with Steve. So Steve was my head coach there, and he ended up going to Hayes. And I had some other offers to go some places, and I bounced around a little bit trying to see what I felt like made sense. But my thing was I had transferred, so that would have been the third year in a row, essentially, that I'm going to a new school. So like I leave my junior year of high school to senior year into freshman year into my sophomore year. And so I was just like, man, not that I'm afraid to do it, but it's like, man, I kind of want some consistency, like I kind of feel like I want to build with something, rather than just keep bouncing and going to new things. And there's reasonings behind all of that. But so I ended up going with Steve out to Hayes, and it was a massive blessing. Like we took the core of our Butler team that was really, really good out there with us. And then Steve obviously was known in the Jayhawk conference and knew, a lot of the other teams that had solid dudes. And so he went and picked apart different guys from other teams. And first year was a little bit of a transition. Obviously, new head coach, new staff, new everybody coming in, and new players, like a bunch of new players. So there was a little bit of some transition there. But then once we kind of got settled, like that team was one of the best teams that I'd ever been a part of. And like we just had that, like, we don't really care what the game's like. Like we could be down by 7 runs in the 9th inning, and every single one of us, like, yeah, we're still gonna win. Like we just had that like swagger about us, and those dudes could play. Like we were competitors, like on and off the field, like everything we did. So yeah, so we had 2 really good seasons in Hayes. And, I was fortunate to be a part of that growth and the different things that happened, and, just doing different things. And, and then that led me to, baseball essentially in the summer times. And after that, which kind of leads into KCLB stuff and being able to play after college and doing things. And
before we get to that,
yeah.
What's aside from baseball stuff, what's your favorite spot? in Hayes? Does it still exist?
Yeah, yeah. Well, there's a couple of them. I don't know if the Rose is still there. The Rose is where we would go. It was a bar, and we would just get in trouble there because we were all underage all the time. So that was a fun place. The Q is probably the staple point of Hayes. The Q is, it's just like a sports bar basically. We would eat there and hang out and that type of stuff. That wasn't really like your nighttime thing. We went to the Rose probably more than everything. Everybody, I mean, it's a country bar, so everybody's line dancing and two-stepping and bouncing around. They had the HBC, the home. That was kind of like your rap bar, like all the dancing and all that stuff. That was just usually more trouble than anything else. And then we had the baseball house that was right by campus. I didn't live there, but some of our guys, the older guys on the team when we arrived, and then our guys kind of took it over after those guys. I don't know if it's still the baseball house now. It probably is, but so we hung out there a lot because it was just centrally located and you could bounce around to just all the places. And Hayes is such a small place. Like, shoot, dude, you can walk everywhere, which was nice because we did. So try to stay out of trouble. But yeah, that's there's a lot of fun things there. We were by far the best sports program. Basketball was really good when we were there too, so it was kind of neck and neck between us and them. And that I follow some of their stuff now, but I know their football program has gotten way better over time. Baseball program took some hits and kind of went down, but they're kind of on the rise. They did better this last year. Last 2 years they've been doing okay, but they got pretty ugly there for a little bit. So yeah, it was fun.
Nice, nice. So let's segue quite a bit into some of the KCLB stuff.
Yeah.
You mentioned you played summer collegiate baseball.
Yep.
So talk about that experience, because I feel like that is something everyone should know about.
Sure.
And that ultimately what leads us to where we're at now and what we've built together and as the group to make it go, because I know our number one thing is host families, but let's talk about your baseball in the summer and then your host families.
Yeah. So I bounced around a little bit. Probably, where I had the most summer collegiate experience is when I was down in Joplin, Missouri. I played down there for the Outlaws, the Joplin Outlaws. I think it might have been their inception year, actually. I don't know. I'm pretty sure it was close to that. But, so that's where I kind of had the most experience, in college, like with collegiate summer ball and just kind of seeing, from a player perspective side. And, what that was, I lived with a teammate of mine. His name was Matt. His grandparents actually lived there. So that's who I stayed with. They were my host family when I was there. But awesome. We had a great experience with them. The team was not great, but I think it was just kind of a first year thing. And, they were trying to piece everything together. Now being on the other end of that, I totally know where they were at. Just trying to make it all work and, get all the different things that you need and just all the stuff. And so I met a lot of cool people, obviously played really competitive baseball. Some of those guys, we actually have a teammate of mine there, his parents, the Stockups, they're a host family for us in Wellington. So that kind of generationally just kind of keeps going and growing, which I think is cool. But, as far as that experience there and being able to, stay with host families, do the whole traveling around, like that was the big thing about Joplin is like, dude, we like lived on a bus. Like we were constantly like going from place to place to place. And that was the part of it that I just hated. I did not enjoy that at all.
They were a part of the Mink then, right?
Yeah, they still are, I'm pretty sure.
No.
They're not anymore?
No, I think they're a part of the new one. I think they exited a couple years ago, but at the time they were a part of the Mink League, which was a powerhouse like league to play in.
Yeah, I remember we played the 4th of July game against the Mustangs, which was pretty badass. Like we were
at their place.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness,
it was awesome.
Their park's so cool.
They had there was a band out in right field, like playing jamming all game. Like there was some cool stuff. So, and that was kind of like before you see like all the promotional baseball stuff that you see out there now. Like they were, at least from what my knowledge base is, they were kind of one of the pioneers of some of that stuff. And I'm sure there's stuff in other parts of the country that was doing it too, but it was a lot of fun. Like that was a real cool experience of just being out there. And, they're full of Division I guys on that team, which was cool, just playing against them and stuff. Like I just like playing competitive baseball. So, yeah, man, that summer was fun. And obviously, once I finished up and, was done, playing, kind of got back to Wichita, trying to figure out, what I was going to do. and always knew I wanted to do baseball. Always knew I wanted to be around sports. I always knew that that's where just my life has been, like from as far as I can remember, like we were doing sports in some form or fashion. And, so I just knew that I wanted to do that. But as you guys know, like if you don't have a like plan or something that's happening, like you do, like sports, it kind of ends, and like there's not a lot of opportunity in it because most of the time, like sports related things, unless you're talking professional sports,
Sure.
there's small markets and there's just not a lot of, money to be made in it, right? It's hard to make a living and it's hard to be able to support a family and like all of that stuff as human as we want to do, right? So I just didn't know where, how, or what. Like I was just kind of at that spot and I ended up actually needing to I needed when I first got back home, I needed to still finish like some online thing or something. I don't even remember what it was, but I had to take an internship and I got 2 business degrees in college and because my degree split my senior year, so they were like, "Hey, like you can just get one and be done right now or you can take a couple classes in the summertime and get 2." And I was like, "Well,
Two it is.
2 it is, like, no problem." And I don't remember what that was, but I don't remember the class, but it was an online thing. Like, it was just something I took online, and so got that all knocked out, but the only other part with that is when that split, I had to take an internship. So, like, I had to do an internship. So I ended up, working at Interest Bank, which looking back on that now, it's like,
What was I doing?
what? Like, like, and honestly, like, my job at Interest Bank was quite literally, and there were some good people there. Cecilia, I'll never forget her. She kind of took me under her wing. She was super nice and helped me. And there was a couple other guys there too that I kind of hung out with. But it was just, I mean, it was just not for me. Like working in an office space like that was just not for me. And it is for some people, and I don't knock it for the people that it works for. Like that's fine and dandy, but not my calling. Like zero passion behind that. I basically just sat on a phone all day. Now, looking back, it was like I learned a lot of skills there too, right? Like I learned how to talk to people on the phone. And don't get me wrong, like the customers that we were dealing with, they were all pissed like every time they call in, like think about it. Anytime you guys call your bank and you're
Yeah.
excited, like, oh, hey, how's it going? What's my account look like today? Like, no, like people that are calling, there's a problem 90% of the time. So they're just already upset. And then on top of that, you had a bunch of fraud people always trying to steal stuff. And like, so you were dealing with high tense things too. But I learned a lot of skills of just being able to have communications on a phone in comparison to sitting in front of someone,
Sure.
and so those skill sets obviously came to life for me as, time kind of went on. Once I finished, I worked there for about a year. And then literally at the end of that, I stayed for that year because I just didn't want my resume to say that I didn't stay for a year. Like, at that point in time in my life. And during that time frame, I started working. I was doing some multi-level marketing stuff with a company called Vima. And I loved that company. I loved all the stuff that, people have all kinds of opinions about that stuff. But for me, it was just skill sets, right?
Not a fan.
Yeah. See, I was learning, like, and I'm a sponge. Like, that's my mentality. My mentality is like, show me what it is. Let me learn as much as I can from it. I'll try anything and like just see how it works and then take what I can take from that and then be able to, put those tools on the tool belt basically. And so I did that and I was super successful in that because one, it taught me how to communicate better, but two, I got thrown into this like public speaking role, right? Which, both of you guys love, I know.
Hey, I'm getting better. I'm
Yeah,
getting
I'm not
better.
saying you're
I'm
not
not
getting
afraid of
better.
it. Early on, yeah, maybe, but yeah, public speaking,
Yeah.
that's like one of the top 5 fears for a lot of people.
I think for a lot of people. And in that company, like you're kind of thrown into
Here
it.
you go.
Yeah. Well, and if you wanted to make any money, you wanted things to work, like you wanted anything, like you just had to get comfortable talking to people. And, the lessons that I learned from that, not only I was successful in that, like I did well, but outside of that, I learned, you know, the things that it takes in business to be successful. One of them is resiliency, right? Like not necessarily, worrying about what everybody thinks about you and thinking this and that. And, in that style of a business, like you just have to be relentless. Like you have to be
Mhm.
willing to have conversations and do it where people go wrong in those things is they don't have true purpose behind it. Their purpose always derives around money, and then that usually ends up being a bad thing because they will throw away morals of like whatever the thing is supposed to be about to just try to make as much money as possible. And that really wasn't it for me because the company really kind of hit on a lot of things for me. Like my mom still drinks the product to this day because she has low iron and it helps with that. And it was a healthy alternative for the stuff that I was doing. Like it just fit in that time of life for me. And so I just, like I said the other day, like I'm 100%, so like when I'm doing something, I'm all in and trying to make it work. But eventually to the point we got to that year at the bank and I was like, dude, I'm about to jump out of one of these windows one day. Like I cannot stand coming to this office.
Typical movie scene.
Yeah, like I like some of these people that I work with here, but like, dude, like
The other
this,
guys.
Yeah, the other guy.
yeah, I do my desk pop and get out. I just, dude, I couldn't do it. Like it was driving me up a wall like every single day. So eventually I got to that year and I was like, all right, see ya. I'm going all in on Vima for a while. Like, I'm just going to make that like my income and like just boom, 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 boom. So then I started traveling. I started working with the company a little bit more like we're from a structure base. So I started bouncing around to other places and like holding these, events and meetings and that type of stuff. And again, everybody has all those opinions, but for me, it was just like I was in training. You know what I mean? Like I was in like boot camp for sales, basically, like putting myself out there, finding ways to meet people that don't know who I am, but yet I'm talking about something that is exciting and like, let's talk about it and see what it's about. And, I met a lot of cool people in that too, like
Sure.
people I'm still friends with today and still talk to. Obviously, not as much as we did, but had a really good I mean, I met people from all over the place, like all over the world. So it was a lot of fun, which, you know, as you guys know, that's why I do things just because I want to have fun when I'm doing them. So
I guess that kind of fast forwarded us to maybe life after baseball, like playing days.
yeah,
So I guess help me understand or help our viewers understand what that felt like. You said like, it just stops early on when you were saying it kind of just stops if you don't have a plan, but you automatically went straight into your plan
Mhm.
because you're a man with a plan most of the time. What was it like to just stop baseball? I mean, we know what we have now, but like
Right.
when your playing days were over, that's like one of the hardest things to digest. We see it a lot with the athletes around here and everything like that. So what was that?
Yeah, no, that was I think I had that same, kind of mental fatigue that, every player kind of ends up with at that point in time. Number 1, number 2, that plays into the psychological parts of it because I think all of us start playing sports, most of us start playing at a young age and everybody has the same pipe dream, right? Of playing in the big show and making it all the way and all the stuff you see on TV with all the guys, and girls, but it's just it's a tough pill to swallow at points in times. I will say that I probably recognized that a little earlier than a lot of the guys, especially the guys that like we work with nowadays, and that's partially it's a whole different tangent of parenting probably. But, when I was in college and I was seeing the guys that were all playing and I'm like, okay, I'm 5'8", 100 and maybe 75, 80 pounds. Like,
I think you're giving yourself a little bit
yeah,
there.
well, yeah, it's like the writing was on the wall for me pretty quickly. Now, granted, I had skill sets that a lot of those bigger guys didn't have, right? Like I was stealing bags, like I was, getting to balls that guys don't typically get to. Like my speed was definitely a thing. My hands were above average, and hitting wise, like I hit really well in college. Like I had the pieces to continue to play and I could have kept trying, you know what I mean? Like,
Well,
but
you would have found an independent ball team to play for at the
oh,
very least.
I could have done a lot
The
of things.
the
Yeah.
guys that I've seen play independent ball, I mean, they're good. They're good ball players, but it's not like a monumental
Right.
task.
Right.
As long as you work hard, you make one of those teams.
Oh, there's a lot of them, right?
Yeah, that
I think
too.
that's the common person. They don't understand how much, semi-professional slash professional opportunities are really out there, especially now overseas and
Yeah.
just all the thing. And I explored those things too. It just, there was
Well,
a brief little stint, that I played down. I went down to Macon, Georgia. I played down there.
For the bacon.
No, actually, it was pre-Macon Bacon, which is a cool name. But like you're saying, like there's tons of opportunities. It's just you gotta have a different level of passion
When
for
the way I kinda see it, and it's how long can your competitiveness stay ahead of your mental wear?
right.
Because your physical wear and tear, the competitiveness can cover the physical wear and tear. 'Cause how long does that competitiveness not get overtaken by the mental wear,
Sure.
especially with the sport like baseball?
Yeah. Well, and dude, I did not like being on a bus. Like, that is not my thing. Like, I don't like traveling that way. And I was beat up physically too. Like, my knees were killing me all the time. My arm was hanging all the time. Like, and part of that's my own fault, right? Like, I didn't know what I didn't know back then. And, so that's a piece of it as well. But it was just, I just saw the writing on the wall. You start looking through prospective people that are playing the game, and you start seeing, there's only one Jose Altuve out there, like, out of
Yeah,
all of the guys playing at that
Why did
time,
you pick that guy?
because
because
look at
I'm
him.
I'm about the same size. I'm
You
taller than him.
you are taller than him. I was gonna say,
Well,
you're 5'8". He's
yeah. And
5'6".
that's interesting too. I mean, like my infield coach in college, he's probably shorter than you, maybe. Really good ball player. He went to Georgia Gwinnett, and I think he won a I'm pretty sure he won a national championship with them in the NAIA. And he's my best coach I've ever had for sure. And he was a really good ball player. But he said it's like I had all the numbers, but I go to these like scouting things because I didn't hit for power. That's it.
Yeah,
I had every other tool, but because I'm not a second baseman who's gonna
yeah,
they don't see down the road you hitting 15 plus home runs in the
yep,
big leagues. Even if you're at that level, even I mean, he probably could have went pro and stayed in the minor leagues for a long time. But it's like
yeah,
how how much are you willing to grind
right.
that long before turning that to that next chapter in your
Yep.
life?
Yep. Yeah, the game's changed analytically, just all of that stuff, which that's again whole different tangent. Average wise, like, I had the average, like, I hit over 300 from a career statistical standpoint, like, in college at all the different places. Like, it just again saw the writing on the wall and was like, do you want to continue to do it, or you want to move along with life? And I mean, it's a tough pill to swallow, right? Like, you got to swallow it at some point for most athletes, right? There's just a small percentage that make it, but then you also kind of, there's a little bit of reassurance there, relief, or whatever you want to call it, where it's like, okay, I've also played at a level that, most people don't even have the opportunity to play at, right? Like, I know I could have continued to keep playing longer than I even did, right? Before I quote unquote hung them up or retired or whatever. But at the end of the day, it's like, what do you do with that? Because you have a knowledge base, you have an experience base that most people, just don't get to. And, do you take that opportunity to take that experience and do something positive with it? That's an awesome avenue. Or do you just take that and go get a normal job? Nothing wrong with a normal job, like, it's just there's that sense of relief too, where it's like, now you get to take that next step in life, and it's just a transition. It's a season of life of changing into the next version of yourself, I guess. But and at that point in time, obviously coming out of that, like, that was the first time in life where I didn't have practice every single day of my life for, like, a 10+ year run of high school into college, basically. So yeah, I was able to relax a little bit and have some fun and go around and do some cool things. But that's what kind of led me down the path of meeting with Coach Dukes, which we talked about a little bit the other day. Obviously, he was a coach of mine in high school, mentored me through high school. He actually worked at North High when I transferred to North High too, right? So we kind of moved together. He ran a mentor group over there, and I was a part of that and a part of the different things there. And him and I built a great relationship through that. He, obviously helped me along in my career and stayed in contact with him. But once I got done, I was just like, man, I want to coach. I want to be involved in sports, right? Like, I want to do something, but I just don't know who, where, when, how. Like, I just didn't have the answers to the questions. So I reached out to him. And I remember, the first day, like it was yesterday, he was like, hey, I'm running a camp today. Come help me out. And I was like, sweet. I ain't have anything to do. I wasn't really working at that time. I was like, no problem. So I went over there and basically was just hanging out. And that was at Wichita Sports Academy. And so he was running a camp. And, what they were trying to do, they were running the Rangers kind of as like a ball club at that point in time, and then it ended up being called something else. I don't even remember what it was, but so they started doing that, and I went to that camp, and he was like, "Hey, introduced me to Brian Patton." So I talked to Brian and got to know him a little bit, and then just started helping him with some camps here and there, doing a couple practice things here and there. And then that's what led me to talking to Brian, and built a little bit of a relationship with Brian. And then Brian was like, "Hey, we're gonna bring this speed school here," and I was like, "What the hell's that?" And he was like, "It's called Parisi," and I was like, "What the hell's that?" Like, what is that? Like Parisi? Like what? Like everybody who we talk to nowadays, like Parasi? Like what?
Parasite.
Yeah. And so then he was like, "Yeah, they're gonna come in, they're gonna certify you and get you trained up, and then basically you can coach there too." And I was like, "Sweet, let's do it." Like I had no clue, right? No idea what that meant, and it was just kind of God's plan of putting timing in where it was supposed to be in, and finding the right people at the right times, and all that stuff. And so it was awesome. And I remember I was still doing Vima at that point in time, so like that was a big part of my life, still on, because I was running meetings and calls and all that stuff, like super into the evenings. Like I was doing all kinds of stuff with that. And we actually, so when I talked to Brian originally over at the sports academy, Coach Dukes was in the like office area over there, and his wife at the time was running like chiropractic, acupuncture, that type of stuff. And they had 2 offices in there, and they were like, "Hey, like, do you want an office out of here?" And I was just like, "Yeah, like, why not?" You know what I mean? And so like I had a little group of people that I worked with here in town, and so we rented that office out from them and kind of, got our footing over there and started doing some stuff. And then they came in, we did our certification for Parisi, which was amazing. That was probably one of the most monumental times in my life that I can remember, of just like this, just getting smacked in the face with just knowledge on knowledge on knowledge. Like, and I will never forget coming out of that certification and just being just pissed off. Like I was so mad that none of the stuff that I was learning inside of there was anything that I was ever taught coming up playing. None of it. Like it was a foreign subject to me. And I felt like after that, like all I could do was look back at my life and be like, man, if I would have just done this different, done this different, done this different, like maybe I could have been that Altuve guy. Like, like maybe I could have actually made that big jump there and, produced a little bit differently and done some different things. What? You're looking at me like you're going to say something funny. So go ahead.
I thought he was going to say
Oh,
something.
two funny things about
No.
Altuve? Okay, fine.
No, I wasn't going to go Altuve.
Oh, okay,
I mean,
okay.
I share the same.
Bang on a trash can. Oh,
I knew it was coming.
No, I was just going to say, after learning the Parisi side of things, discussing what you're saying, we grew up in a different era, bigger, faster, stronger.
Yeah.
Nobody ever talked about certain things. You just needed to be the biggest, the fastest, and the strongest.
how do you get there?
Right. Lift,
Yeah.
take 1AD.
Go
Back in the day, supplements before your time, before
Right,
you're
I wouldn't
probably
know. I wouldn't know.
like born.
Yeah, but and then do the ladders.
Just there's some things that go hand in hand on that. And yeah, if we would have known, where would we be?
Right. Oh, dude, I just remember that so vividly.
Still right here.
Yeah, dude, it just pissed me off. Like it just like I just remember
Me.
moving and running and just feeling, like this was, almost 2 years after I had like really like played like super competitively, a year and a half, whatever. And it was just like after sitting through that, one, having all these light bulbs just going off in my head of like, dude, this makes sense, this makes sense, this makes sense. And just kind of thinking back and hearing all of my ex coaches and old coaches never even mention none of this stuff. It was just like, I just knew that the system was broken. Like I looked at it and I was like, dude, we can do this a lot better for kids. Like there is so much more that we can pour into, and it's going to take some time for people to understand it. It's just so much better. Cause I ran faster after that certification than I ever did in college, which was probably the the big moment where I was just like, dude, there ain't no way. Like, and I did it multiple times. Like I ran my 5-10-5 multiple times. I ran 60-yard dash. I ran the 20. Like I ran it over and over because I was trying to prove to myself, like, is this real? Like, is this actually happening? And it was simple stuff. Like it was simple form and technique corrections, but I was obviously a relatively high functioning athlete, right? I could pick that stuff up pretty quickly. I could apply that stuff pretty quickly. And then my drive to do it was super high. And I was just like, I was floored at those guys. So shout out to Chad, Eric Mitchell. You guys were awesome. Chad Coy, Eric Mitchell. Hopefully they see this someday, but they changed my life, like literally changed my life that day. And I thank Brian for just inviting me to go and check it out, and me kind of making the decision to do it, because that's what led to, all of these different things. And and it's not like it was just all straight up from there or anything, but it was that whole certification was awesome. So it was fun. And that led me, kind of down the road with Parisi, kind of, and Parisi's really kind of the backbone of a lot of things, like the KCLB, but Parisi's kind of the backbone of, what we do throughout the entirety of the year, and being a part of all of these athletes, journeys, and the different things that they have going on, and helping them develop, and kind of that system that I was talking about, that I think is getting better now, because there's just so much more, but there's still all those pieces of different things that people are always going to try and shortcut and try to cheat and try to find their ways around just what the work is. And you can't, like, you can continue to try it, but it won't work out that way. And Parisi's philosophy and the way that our program works, and what we do here, is just it's an applicable thing that makes sense no matter where you're at in your athletic journey, and it allows you to really just bunker down on foundational skill sets that make the big difference. And when you don't overcomplicate it and you keep it simple, it just boils down to doing the work, right? And I think that lesson kind of goes across all platforms, no matter what it is. But so Parisi kind of let us off into, obviously, getting in with Dukes a little bit more as well too at that point in time.
So real quick,
Yeah.
is Parisi your why?
What do you mean?
Like why? Why
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 Parisi?
Parisi, and why has that changed your life, in not only from the philosophy side of things, but why has it led us down this path and for so long?
Yeah. Well, I mean, Parisi obviously is something that we can do all the time, in comparison to baseball has a season. So that's probably the main thing. But, Parisi is.
But that's your foundation.
Yeah. Well, I also think that Parisi is something where we don't have to be sports specific. Like, we get to work with athletes in all walks of life. And in my opinion, it's more important than the sports specific stuff. And, if athletes would work on that portion of their game, quote unquote, they would find that no matter what sport they play, it's going to be a lot easier. You know what I mean? It's going to be simpler. You're going to be better at it. You're going to be more injury resilient. There's just a lot that plays into that. And when you kind of reverse engineer it, and you think of, professional athletes that are out there, right? Do the professional athletes essentially, go into the lab and, work on their baseball skill set or whatever sports specific skill set? Typically a bunch. Yes and no, little tweaks in this and little tweaks in that, sure. But reality is most of the time they're dealing with what? Injuries, fatigue, taking care of their bodies, like being able to perform at the highest level, right? And what does that boil down to? The foundational stuff.
That's interesting. I mean, I'm just thinking about, like, professional sports and professional athletes in their off season. Obviously, I don't really personally know any professional athletes,
Yeah.
but it's like coming into spring training for like the Yankees this year.
Gross.
Okay. A big story was like Ben Rice last year he came up. So 2024 he came up, made a big splash right away, hit a couple bombs against Boston. 3-in-1 game. It was pretty sick, and everybody's like, "Oh, we got to do." And then of course, as a lot of rookies do, they come in, they mash right away, and then pitchers get, they've seen him a couple times. He starts struggling with it, so he kind of finished down, and in the off season, man, he like. Well, this could get me on a whole nother thing, but and on the same team, we've seen like Anthony Volpe come back each year being the same player he is as he was a rookie year. Ben Rice put on like 10, 15 pounds of muscles, came back and was a dog.
Yeah.
Like, and what did from sports specific? Some of it, yeah, for sure. But the dude changed his body. Like, he went out and got bigger, he got stronger, so he could actually go and be a catcher at the MLB level, even though defensively he might not be the best right now, and he's still playing some first base. But like, he came back and he got bigger, stronger, was ready to go with a better body, and he crushed it this year. And it's people, and we can save more of this for like the Parisi pod
Yeah.
instead. But I think for you going through that certification, almost forgot the word for that, but because obviously I went through it too with one of the same coaches with Coach Chad. Yeah, I mean, is so eye opening. Like even as I was going through the online certification before I started working here, I'm looking at this stuff. I'm like, because like I said in the last episode, I was like, when you asked me if I wanted to coach here, I was like, I'm slow. I'm like really slow. Like,
Yeah, when you saw Chad running that, were you like, because that's the first thought I had, because I was fast, right? Like I've been fast my whole
this
life.
is this guy who has
And
no
Chad,
neck.
Chad walks in and he's a freaking boulder of muscle, and I'm like,
it's shoulders right to the
yeah.
right to the.
And I'm like, how in the hell is this bowling ball going to teach me anything about
goodness.
speed? Like
Yeah.
how, you know what I mean? Like I feel like I would just dust this dude, and he can move a little
No,
bit. Like he's
yeah.
he's one of them dudes that like if you saw him in an alley running after you, like I'd try to outrun him, but then at some point you're probably just gonna lay down and just say, don't do it.
Yeah, and even just like the foundational movements he does are just why? Because he does them all the time, and because he coaches it, right?
Yeah.
And it's seeing that, and you just think you're like, okay, this is the mission now.
Yeah,
because
and he's one of the world's strongest men competitors, ultimate strongman competitor. Like, you know, so you just start to, I think you just start to connect those dots, right? And they're simple to connect, but it's just everybody just kind of rushes to the sports specific side of it, and then they kind of think you'll just get this stuff along the way, and then you know, again, we can save a lot of that for the Parisi part.
And then you have, you know, your blowouts that you just get tired of the same thing.
Yeah. Well, your body gets tired of the same thing too.
Yeah. You know, the stuff that Parisi does for, you know, all athletes and not being super specific is very different than.
Yeah. So to answer your question to the why, like, yeah, it's a big part of why we do what we do. I think it's probably the most impactful thing that we offer under the umbrella of things that we do. It's probably the most impactful one on the youth of our community, and the most, you know, important one when it comes to providing opportunity for kids that they're not going to get anywhere else, right? And they can get really good at their sports. They can get good at certain things. But as you guys know, as I know, if they're going to try and play in college, this is what's going to separate them in comparison to just, you know, doing PE or your school weights program or whatever it is. You know, and it's just, have these conversations with people all the time, but it's just like, you know, if you do the same stuff that everybody else is doing, the average stuff, you're going to get average results. Like it's just that simple. You know, so you got to kind of put yourself into a different light and do things a little bit differently if you want to get results that most people aren't getting. And the reality is this is the other part. Most people don't play college sports. Like it, you know, I don't know where people just think that that's such a common thing nowadays. It's so hard. People have no real understanding of those numbers, but anyway, so Parisi, obviously very important for everything that we do here. We'll have a whole dedicated pod about that, and I'm sure we'll get off on some fun tangents with that.
I think that's going to be like multiple episodes.
Might have
like
to be.
it's it's going to be.
We might sit
episodes.
down all at once and do it, but then we.
Yeah, that might be a big one. But you know, Parisi was a door that opened up for me, and I was all in. Like I was so excited after that. Like, you know, as you guys know, like when I started, you know, really diving in with Parisi, there was a whole different staff. I was just a coach, right? There was already a program director gal that was in place, which I give Brian shit about this all the time, but it's like, what were you thinking? You know, because no, and she was a nice gal. Like, I'm not trying to rag all. She was super nice, but no sports background, had nothing to do with sports whatsoever. And then she's trying to run a sports performance company. It's like, what? Not saying she couldn't do it, but she didn't do it. And so then I kind of got thrown to the deep end of that, which in the beginning I was just like, yeah, whatever. You know what I mean? I'll just figure it out. Like, I just went through a certification that I had no idea of anything. Like, they gave me a book that was like this thick on Monday, and I was taking a test on Friday. Like, I didn't go to school for that, you know, like I went to school for business stuff. So, you know, all these terms, like they're familiar because I've been in sports. Anyway, so, you know, just thrown into the deep end, and, you know, we had no customers, we had no kids, we had no families, we had no nothing. You know, we just had a, roughly close to $18,000 bill that we had to pay every month to keep the facility. So, and obviously Brian knew in the beginning that wasn't going to be, you know, the breadwinner of the facility. Obviously we had baseball teams and all the different stuff they were working on, which I wasn't really involved with. And so it was a challenge, but look back to the history, right? Like I'm essentially running a company that is all about people, talking to people, getting out in front of people, right? So reaching out and figuring out who to talk to, how to talk to wasn't the issue for me. I had just had a ton of work life experience in a company that like all I did was sit on a phone the entire time. So, the skill sets that I had just gained over the last 2 years, I was kind of getting able to, or being able to put those into, work. And, so that's kind of where we started. And, I just remember, creating like compensation plan, like trying to figure out how I was going to pay myself, which was, very scarce for a while. Like just really just scraping by. Thankfully, I had other things to, be able to pay my bills and do stuff in the beginning because Breezy lost money for, 3-ish, maybe almost 4 years, something like that. So none of this would be possible. I said this yesterday, but none of this would be possible without Brian. And I am forever grateful to Brian, for taking a chance on me because he had a girl in there for about 3 months roughly before I took over as the program director. And really it was like, okay, we're 3 months into this and we're at $0. Like, what is going on? And so then I was like, hey, pick me. Like I'll figure it out. And, like I don't know what I'm gonna do, but like I'll just, go all in and try to figure it out. And so that's what we did. And slowly but surely, a couple thousand here, a couple thousand there, of just kind of growing the business and trying to figure out how we make it all work. And he did it all wrong for 3 years, like I tell Sean, because obviously Sean is our program director now, and I tell Sean the stories of all this stuff all the time of, like this desk, like the one that we're sitting at was just littered with sticky notes of just like up and down this thing of people that I would talk to about Parisi, and then I would essentially have to beg them to come into the facility and just come look at it. Like, because at that point in time, nobody had heard of us. Like nobody had heard of one, Bill Parisi, who obviously is a big deal, but we're in Wichita, Kansas. Like, dude,
Right.
ain't nobody heard of that dude. Like Parisi, like what? Every time they say it wrong and no clue. So there was no like national advertising or marketing that helped us. Uh, so yeah, so that's where it started. And then, kind of slow and steady, just picking and choosing on how we were going to spend our time and what we were going to do and just figuring it out along the way. I shared a screenshot with Sean the other day of like I think it was 9 years ago. Is that what it was? I think it was
I
9
think
years ago. Was it
it
10
was
years?
9 years ago.
Yeah, it might have been
have
10 years ago. I shot him a screenshot of like our business checking account that was negative. And I was just like, yeah, dude, just imagine like it's stressful, you know what I mean? Like every day. And I'm essentially a steward of Brian's money at that point in time, like trying every day to just bust my ass to try and figure out ways to make the business successful enough to where I don't have to continue to try and get money from this guy to make this thing work and go backwards kind of a thing. And it was just, it was a grind, but I'm very thankful for him and thankful that I stuck it out and, continued to push along. Um, because that's where, kind of led us into, baseball, right? Like,
Sure.
cause that's what's kind of led getting the function of that kind of going is what led me in impartial because it was like, okay, I need to diversify time here. You know what
Yeah.
I mean? Like the realities of life where it's like, okay, not to say that this isn't going to work out, but how do I make both of these things work and how do I make the time make sense? And, it was just a lot of time dedication. But
So real quick for
yeah,
all the viewers, maybe you're just joining us and whatnot. This is Sheldon Howell. By design, we fly by the seat of our pants and make things happen. We go all in. We're gonna have different segments about the different businesses that this group is a part of. And it all leads with Sheldon. So, real quick break from the Parisi talk because we could definitely go on for
we will.
days.
We'll get to that
We'll
episode.
get to that. But we're just trying to get everybody acquainted with Sheldon Howell and see how that goes. So we're gonna take a step off of Parisi,
Okay.
very, very passionate part of our lives here, and let's move past Parisi and get into the rest
Sure.
of life because we know, but maybe the viewers don't that you're a family man.
Yeah.
You have some kids.
Yep.
And you love sports.
Yep.
Let's
Well,
talk KCLB.
Okay. Staying. So on the timeline, so Parisi's rolling and kind of.
crazy.
No.
Let me rewind
No.
this. Hold on a second.
No, Parisi's rolling. And, so I kind of get the structure of what I'm going to do every day figured out with that, right? Like I, figure that out. And so then I'm dedicating that time. But then baseball, I still want to do baseball. right? So Preezy's awesome and it's a passion. Like, and I have just as much fire for that as I do for baseball, but I didn't want to just like throw baseball out the window, you know? And so then Dukes and I, we were coaching the Cannons for a summer, which is a collegiate team here. And I was just his assistant coach. I was able to just kind of pick apart being a part of a college staff, like doing different roles, different things. And then from that, basically what happened is that transitioned into Brian acquiring the Walter Johnson League, is what it was called then. So Brian acquires that with Dukes. They both were like purchasing that together as partners. And I was just the assistant coach at that time. And when that happened, Dukes was like, hey, like, do you want to be a part of like the league staff and like do something? And I was just like, yes, like, whatever it is, like I'm in. And he was like, I don't know what we could pay, if we even can pay. And I was like, don't worry about it. Like, I'll figure it out. Like it is what it is. Take the opportunities, surround yourself with people that are going to give you opportunities and just work. And, so that's what I started doing. I basically, I self-titled myself as director of communications because that's what one of my degrees is in communications. So I started doing that, which really was just like make sure everyone's communicating to each other because back then baseball was kind of like the Wild West. In some spots it still is. But so we had a lot of, older guys that were a part of the league. And, essentially I was just fly on the wall. Like I was there. I sat through league meetings.
Back to being a sponge.
Yeah, like I was just listening, right? Like I was just like, okay, this is this, how do I learn here? And then I was just kind of following Dukes, trying to figure out, what was needed, number one, but then how does all this operate? Because I'd never been involved in a sports organization at that level, one, but two, on an organizational side at all. Like I'd played and coached, but this is a whole new venture essentially. And so things start kind of rolling there. We get like a year under our belt with that. And then it was just everything hits the fan. Like it just starts to get crazy in the league. We have all kinds of moving pieces and different things happening. Dukes would tell you in his words that it became a dumpster fire. And so as that's going on, there's a bunch of stuff, which, when we do the KCLB pod, we'll get into that a little bit more details on that because that'll be a tell-all story.
Maybe invite Dukes?
Yeah, maybe. I'll see what he's doing.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, that, so basically it just things shifted, right? So they went a whole different direction. We kind of went a different direction, but what was cool about that in my story was, Dukes was at a point where he was like, hey, here's an opportunity, right? Like if you want to do it and you want to run with it, like here's the keys, you know what I mean? See what happens. And I have the text messages because I saved them. Him and I talk about them sometime, but I just remember kind of talking to him and talking him through it. I'm like, dude, how am I going to do this? Like, what do you mean? Like, dude, these dudes aren't going to like, no, like what? And he's like, dude, you'll be fine.
Figure it out.
He's like, just do it. He's like, you'll be fine. Like, he was like, I'm here to help you if you need my help, but you'll be okay. Like you can do it. And, so it was just kind of like another like aha moment, I guess. And I was just like, you know what? Screw it. Like, here we go. Like it just buckle up, hit the gas pedal. And so we started when I took over the league as the commissioner, right? So we had a split in the league, which we'll get into in a different one. But when that happened, I had to start some teams to have a functioning league. That was the year that we brought in Wellington. So we had Wellington, the Cannons, and Park City. Those were the three teams that we had that were in the league and involved. We had to start Valley Center. We started a team in Clearwater, and then we actually started a team. They were called the Marlins, which was a total disaster, but we had them as well, too. So that was our 6 teams that we had in the league. The Marlins played at Life Preps Field up Robertson's Field up north. And that was my trial by fire in baseball. That was my first year of just absolute chaos of having to put staffs together in these places, having to go to city council meetings and talk to these places. Mind you, with zero experience of any of this, like quite literally just showing up and hoping for the best. Really not much guidance because it wasn't like I had someone kind of ushering me in kind of a thing. Like it was all kind of from scratch. And again, it was just like, trial by fire is a very easy way of saying that. It was wild. But things went well, things were good, and just kind of continued on and kept plugging away. And then obviously we've had teams develop and teams have changed and we moved teams. And, if you fast forward kind of league operation, we got to a spot where it was pretty comfortable, with how things were running. But as you guys know me, that wasn't necessarily what I was looking for. I wasn't looking for comfortability. I was looking for growth and finding ways to expand and put us on a map from a national level. And that's probably, right around that time frame is when Dave and I kind of started talking a lot more, because I took over the league in 2017, maybe 2016, 2017.
I think it's 16 to 17
Yeah,
for
somewhere in
sure.
there. And then you and I kind of started chatting a couple years after that, around 2019 into 2020. And then in 2020, obviously COVID year, so that was just a debacle of different things. We didn't end up playing in 2020, which was kind of a blessing in disguise. It allowed me to, one, take a summer off, which will probably never happen again. Two, allowed us to be able to kind of realign in some aspects of, what are we going to do to make this different? And that's where Dave and I got to sit down and, kind of put some stuff. And I'll let you kind of,
Man, my
tell.
story is completely different.
It was,
Yeah,
it was basically like that.
So I met Sheldon at the Wichita Sports Academy. One of his coaches played slow pitch with me, and he was like, "Hey, let's just go hit." And I always bugged Sheldon to hit because Zach was always like, "Sheldon's such a good athlete. You should get him to come play." So one night I brought some beverages and invited him down, and we hit. And then he joined the team. And Sheldon slowly dripped all this information to me as we did our travels everywhere. And then it really came to a head in 2020. We'll line up at the 2020 mark. November, I made the jump, and I just started showing up, and I kept showing up, and he kept harassing me about why I wasn't working out, but all these ideas were flying through my head to help us figure out where we can go and build some systems. So, but that's a KCLB story. So
Yeah, we'll get to it. But yeah, that was, and that's kind of what led us, to, I would say, systemizing a lot of what we done with the league, creating them as, true operational organizations, right? Like, because we've gotten to a point now where we've developed them, developed those systems to where they run and they function. And, it's not just that I have to do every little bit of it, right? Like we've made them to where they can function, efficiently, and allows us to focus on bigger stuff and focus on projects and trying to make it, a more professional type of an outlook compared to like a backyard baseball team, right? That was kind of our big thing. But, and then that led us, what?
Nothing.
Just moving around really fast, intermission in your brain. But then that led us, talking, about just all the different things. And this, again, I'm being vague on some of the KCLB details because I want to get into those on that and really kind of dive into them. But as far as my story and timeline, that led into, the Summer Ball Showdown, right? So KCLB's growing, things are awesome, things are good.
hands me a packet of this idea, said, "Figure it out."
Yeah, let's just keep it simple. But so then we go with Summer Ball Showdown. Summer Ball Showdown's been a journey in its own right. That's 5 years into that now too, which is kind of cool. And we'll talk about all the details of that. And then Summer Ball Showdown's it's just been growing and growing and growing. Impacting a new community that we weren't in, and really even probably from a nationwide standpoint as well. And so then after Summer Ball Showdown, or really during some of the Summer Ball Showdown stuff, was when we were in our old facility and then had to talk about, moving to the new facility and coming over here. So then we decided that we were going to be construction company for a little bit, which was a whole different thing. Again, learning new tasks and new things, but moved over to our new facility, which is what leads us to right here, right now. We've been developing this facility over the last 3 years, and just Sean's been a big part of helping with projects. Dave's done them. It's just we're just wearing a lot of
Had to conquer the old fear of heights.
Yeah, he didn't really get too much time to work through that one, but yeah, we've done some questionable is what I would.
Just don't come here, OSHA. Just don't do it.
It's just questionable
talking about?
Stay away.
What are you talking about?
things, but we've got it up and running. I think right now we're probably, moving into a time in the facility where we're going to be busier than we've ever been. And I think, when you reflect on all of the storyline that gets us to the stuff that we're doing, it's like, we're going to be able to help a lot of families. There's a lot of cool things that are happening, but so yeah, that's kind of the timeline. I think that kind of puts us to here. So just kind of looking through, we got Parisi, obviously, we got the KCLB. We have, Summer Ball Showdown. Those are like our three big things. Now we have Kansas Sports HQ. That's kind of this and kind of the going to be the media outlet for all of the things. And then we have our six baseball teams underneath that. So you got Park City Rangers, Valley Center Mud Daubers, El Dorado Walnuts, Mulvane Patriots, Midwest Moose and Winfield, and then the Wellington Heat. Those six teams that are kind of under our umbrella. Also, the Kansas Curve in the KCLB. Shout out to Baca. And then we had the farmers. Farmers might be in, might be out. We're working through that. So figuring out they're an international team. So we're doing some stuff with them. But yeah, that's kind of the backstory and kind of is what has led us, kind of to where we are right now. We'll dive into more details as things go on. There's a lot of pieces to unpack with some of that stuff, which is going to be fun.
So Sheldon, we talked a lot about work.
Yeah.
So who are you outside of work?
Outside of work is still work. To be honest, people always talk about that like there's just like work-life balance, blah blah BS. The reality is like, dude, if you do what you love and you get to, actually enjoy the things that you're doing, then it all just coincides together. And that's what it is. Now, granted, you got to have support and you got to have the people that are bought into the same things that you enjoy and the things that you like to do. And I'm not saying it's simple and easy. It's just, as you guys know, like we essentially live here and sleep at home. Like and that's just kind of the reality of it is, but this is where I feel the most comfortable. It's where I want to spend time. It's where I want my kids to grow up. It's where I want, your guys' families to have access to it. To me, it's just about making that type of family mentality with all the things that we do. But yes, I mean, obviously we do things outside of here as well. I have three small children. I have a daughter, Scout, who's 6. Banks, the Tasmanian Devil, is 4. And then Stokely is almost a year old. She's actually November's coming up. So, yeah, she's got a little less than a couple weeks for her first birthday. So that's a little time for you, boys. And I've been super fortunate. I've taken the kids with me to work a lot. First 2 kids, as Dave knows, first 2 kids basically were here with me at work every single day. Ashley was still teaching at that point in time. And so she was with me and the kids were with me while she was doing that. And then we kind of did a handoff when I was coaching all through the evening times here. So that was a grind like that. There's a lot of wear and tear on both of us in that regard. But, it's kind of worth it to be able to, now she's able to be with the kids more and be around them, which to me is very, very important because I think that that's a big key piece in life as their development and as they're, in their young ages. And that's time you don't get back and things that, being around and nurturing, loving mother is very, very important for their development. And, we're fortunate enough, we're blessed enough to be able to, do those things. And it didn't come easy. And it was a lot of long hours and probably working more than what most people are willing to do, but that's also why we're able to do some of the things that we've been fortunate enough and blessed with to have. But yeah, I mean, outside of that, I mean, dude, I love work. Like I don't know, like it's just I like working with the kids. I like coaching the kids. I like coming up here. I like being around them. The only other things that I do outside of this are just hang out with my buddies, hang out with you guys, hang out with the fam, go golf. Golfing's kind of like all of our things now that I think when you're a baseball player and you retire, it's just you transition
you have to
into
suck at
become
golf.
you
still have to have
transition to it.
some type of competition, whether that's
Right.
with yourself or against your friends. And
Yeah.
It's
Well,
just against the devil inside me trying to tell me to throw my golf club into the lake, which
Yeah.
that voice has won a few times.
Yeah.
But it's
well,
I decided to stop sucking at baseball and start sucking at golf.
fair enough.
just it's more expensive is all. Yeah. But yeah, I mean, outside of it, it's just, hanging out with them. I hope that the kids, get to grow up here, be a part of this journey here because obviously as my passion of that development portion of it, I think is going to be a part of something that they get access to that I didn't have access to. And I hope that that leads them down the path of wanting to play competitive sports. They may not want to, I don't know. If they do, they do. They don't, they don't. But I'm going to try and provide them with every opportunity to be able to kind of go down that path because I know how important sports are. And, and that's just my lifestyle and what I do. And Ashley loves sports as well, too. She's a volleyball girl, basketball girl. So she has a little bit of experience there. So I think that's kind of in the blood, obviously, my mom and that type of stuff. I mean, sports are just kind of what we do.
Scout is definitely an athlete.
She should be. I mean, if
She's
I
a
can get her
beast.
attitude in check, then she'll probably be all right. But it'll come with some time. She's, they they want to do it, but they've got to get into the mix a little bit too. We'll see where
Yeah,
it goes.
you sent me a video on Saturday about showing Scout warming up for her soccer game.
Yeah.
Doing the running progression and the active dynamic warm up.
Yep.
No other kids warming up out there. Yeah, the way you don't separate work and family, I think, is first of all being blessed in a position to do that.
Yeah.
Right. And then obviously kind of practice what you preach. I think if we want to build a family culture here at Parisi and with the relationships and of course the KCLB and Summer Ball Showdown as well, right? Like if you want to build a family culture in there, you build that first within your own life and you intertwine it. Like if people see you come, they see Banks running around, they see Scout running around, they see Stokely crawling around, and your wife in here working out with her clients and everything too, is they see a culture that looks fun and inviting to be a part of. And then they get to the actual product, which is great. So I think that goes with any of the organizations you do. You don't have to completely separate every little thing in your life to make sure your mental health is perfect. No, I think if you blend things together, all the relationships, it can get tricky sometimes, obviously, but we're all human. We all mess up all the time. So it's not like it's easy, but it is cool to see kind of your vision of what you wanted to do trickle into the relationships you build with the community.
None of that comes without sacrifice, right? Like Ashley has sacrificed plenty to make all of this stuff tick. You know what I mean? Like, and just imagine, she's at home with the kids now more so, but even in the beginning of our relationship, like, she's at home by herself when I'm over here putting in 14, 15, 16-hour days. Like, and that's not even like uncommon.
Yeah.
Like, and you're going through, not going through, but like you're in the schedule, that as the program director, which is the position that I did for a really long time, you're in that grind schedule where it's like, hey, I'm working on establishing this foundation of business. And dude, like and it's 7 days a week, like, like you're always on, like, it's just the realities of it. And that's okay. Like to act like it's not okay is fine. But when people, I'm not superhuman. Like, dude, there's
Liar.
times where I need a break, right? Yeah. Like, and it's okay to say, hey,
Say what?
I said liar.
like, dude, like people need a break. You need a break. Like, it is what it is. Like, take a couple days, go take a break. Like I don't know. Like, we just live in a culture that's just weird.
Basically what you do is you break up your day into 3 days.
Yeah,
So
and by the time that you're on
the first 8 hours is 24 hours.
Yeah.
Right.
My 1 hour is 3 of your hours.
Exactly. Just micromanage that. You're fine.
I manipulate time.
So let's wrap this thing up with Sheldon. Everyone can see when you sway that you're a Green Bay Packers fan.
Yeah.
So let's tell them about your ownership.
Oh yeah. I'm a shareholder in the Packers, so I would say that's an outside passion. So there you go. That's life outside of work.
He makes phone calls and text messages to make sure people are getting the playing time they deserve.
I wish, but no, yeah, dude, I love the Packers. I've loved them ever since growing up, watching Brett Favre, and then to Aaron Rodgers, and now Jay Love. So
And
it's
Malik.
fun. Yeah, Malik's in there too. He's going to be in the running, but no, yeah, and again, what does that boil back to? Sports, So it's just kind of it
It's
wraps
ingrained.
together. Yeah, I mean it is, and the Packers have some opportunity to do some stuff. We'll see. They let me down every year, so it just is what it is. I remember the last time we won the Super Bowl, I was in college, so I won't explain the things that happened after they won the Super Bowl. I'm thankful I woke up the next day and was able to keep playing baseball, so that was good. But yeah, it's been a long time. It's been too long since we've been back. I will say that. So hopefully we can put some things together this year and figure out an opportunity. But
You don't want to see me in the playoffs
I'm just not afraid of anybody.
this year.
Actually,
This year.
yeah. Like
Yet.
I think we still have our best ball to play, and I think that the teams that have been close games have played their best games of the season so far against us, which is kind of the treatment Chiefs fans nowadays feel like they get that all the time, but the Packers really get it everywhere because our fans travel so well, and you go to away games and like there's still a ton of Packers fans there, so think that adds to some motivation. But yeah, I mean, we'll see what happens. I'm overly emotional when it comes to that stuff. I need to not be, but it just it's
It's
hardwired.
worth it.
It's
It's worth
hardwired
it.
into me. I
It's
can't
worth
help
it.
it.
So, well, all right, guys. Sheldon, thanks for sharing your story. We're going to have many more backstories and how we can build up with all the things that we're involved in. Greatly appreciate your time. Sean, thank you. And,
Yeah.
Kansas Sports HQ.
Thank you, Dave.
Yeah, producer Dave wearing the hat. But yeah, let me close it out just by, really couple of things that I always try to remember, especially for you guys, obviously working closely with us, is I don't think that we have to ask permission to go after the stuff that we want to do, right? I think that for us collectively, and for anybody that does make it this far and watch this, like, you guys, whoever you are, can do whatever it is that you want to do. You just have to be willing to sacrifice. And that's the hard part. The hard part is understanding the cost of what it is usually the reason why things don't end up working for you, is because you're not willing to pay the cost. And whether that cost be, time away from the things you enjoy, time away from your family, time away, right? If it's a time thing, just learning a skill set, getting better at a skill set, doing something, or whether it be, putting yourself out there and putting yourself into uncomfortable situations, right? There's a cost for all of the things that you want in life. And you just have to be willing to look yourself in the mirror, but get that person out of the way at the same time, right? And be able to say, hey, no matter what happens, I'm just going to keep plugging away, right? Like, I'm going to keep going, and never, ever, ever quit on the things that you want to go out and do, right? Because you can go and design that life that you want. Eventually, you're going to have to be realistic with what that means, right? But you still want to have unrealistic goals. Like, you still want to shoot for the moon and over and over and over. But, bet on yourself, take that chance, take that risk, ground yourself in the Lord, and find ways to really, really, really push yourself and push the envelope. So just wanted to say that before we finished up, because I think these are things that we can look back at, even myself, when I look back at this and remind myself of certain things, because I'm not perfect. I have doubts all the time, like, that type of stuff. And, so it's good to always kind of say those things and just know we're on the right track, know that we're doing the things that we should be doing, and keep plugging away at them.
All right, Sean, you ready?
Oh yeah, sure. So we'll either start or finish these with some prayer or some scripture. Something we're all trying to be is followers of Christ. So, and we hope that, even though obviously we're not always going to say the best things on here, we're going to try and be the main message to intertwine yourself with Him, with God, because ultimately not a lot of lasting things are on this earth other than that relationship with Christ. So I'll end in prayer, and we can we'll finish this off. Okay?
Sounds good.
So, dear Heavenly Fathers, thank you for another day on this earth. Every single day is an absolute gift. Every single time we wake up, breathing is an absolute gift. Thank you for your Son. Thank you for your Spirit that works within us and that saves us, Lord. And I pray that as me, Dave, and Sheldon continue to do this, that not only are our stories shared and that can help people and that people can relate to and that people can see, and it brings awareness to the organizations we're doing, that I pray that we put our best foot forward in those organizations, but that I also pray that your name and your word and you are glorified in the end, Lord. So in your name I pray. In Jesus' name I pray. Amen.
Amen.
Thank you, sir.